Howdy folks, welcome to Ratty Muscle of Alaska's Dirt Road Derelicts, and today I'm going to talk about something that I don't see a lot out there in the wide world of automotive nonsense, and that is preparing for a revival. So what I have here is an old International Harvester V8 engine. I'm not sure which displacement it is at this very moment in time. It's probably a 304, a 345, or a 392. And yeah, one thing I don't see is people preparing for a revival months in advance. Usually you just see people, squirt a little oil in your engine and then they start their revival. Well, I'm going to start a couple months early with this one and give it time to soak and let the rings free up. But first things first, I got to take care of some yard chores, so I'll see you guys back here in a moment. Don't you just love springtime in Alaska when all your projects are so covered in snow you get worried about the weight breaking things? Good times. You really gotta love it when there's only 13 square inches of sheet metal showing on your project vehicle. That's how buried it is in the snow. Alrighty, here's our third and final truck that we're going to shovel off today. And this truck's actually going to be the focus of our video. This particular automobile is a 1970, if I recall right, 1200 International Harvester with the travelette package. That means it's a crew cab. It's got a SV Series International V8 engine. I don't know which one it is as of right now. It's either a 304, a 345, or a 392. I'm pretty sure. It could be a 266 though, but that would be a very odd swap into this truck. But what we're going to do is shovel this thing off, and the reason why I'm going through and shoveling off all my trucks like this one is these old trucks had cab lights and antennas and all kinds of other doodads and gadgets on the roofs, and when people take those, they leave holes in the roofs. And what I don't like about that is all that snow sits up there. When springtime actually comes and the snow starts melting, all that water goes in the interior of these trucks, and I'd like to keep them more solid than well, if they were all rusted out, I wouldn't really like that. So I try and keep them a little bit nicer. The other thing is these Internationals are very well known for getting a lot of water down into the cowls, and then they rust the cowls right out. And all this snow, it melts, and then all that water pools under the snow, and then that water has to find somewhere to go, and it just rusts these things right out. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing shoveled off, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about preserving your engines. Alrighty, now that I got all that pesky snow out of the way off the roof, it's all on the bed now, but we're just not even going to worry about that right now. Got the hood propped up. As you can see, the hinges are gone. I pulled those a while ago because the hinges seized, and you can see the hood kinked over. Just like old square body Chevys do when the hinges get sticky and you try and reef the hood down, the hood just bends. So this truck will be needing a new hood and hinges eventually, but that's a little ways down the road. You can see it needs a lot more other kinds of work. The inner fender's all cracked and all that. But don't worry, I've got big plans for this truck, and those plans do not involve this engine, but I have plans for this engine. So what we're going to go ahead and do is prepare to revive this engine. I'll probably pull it out and have it on a pallet and get it running on the pallet. Last time I checked, this engine did spin. I don't think I can spin it by hand, but well, I can certainly try. Well, if you guys can see that, it does still spin. This thing spun when I got it, and one thing that I've always worried about is the preservation of this engine, and so today we're going to do something about that. See, I've got this old pair of corduroy jeans. Aren't those just right out of the 1970s? Over this here intake. And let me go grab my Special Go Juice mixture. Alrighty, so what we've got here is probably 4 gallons of diesel fuel. I know this is a gas jug, it's just what I had when I was in town. I've got Marvel Mystery Oil here and 2 quarts of automatic transmission fluid. So I'm going to dump some Marvel Mystery Oil, probably both of these ATFs in here, then we'll shake it up good and take it over to the truck. Alrighty, we made it back up here with our diesel jug, and I dumped 1 quart of ATF in there and then a bunch of Marvel Mystery Oil, and I saved the other quart of ATF. And what we're just going to do is give this thing a healthy dose and pour a lot on the intake too, apparently. And of course what this is going to do is work its way down in there to the cylinders, and it's going to lubricate up our valves if any of the valves are sticking, and it's going to go down there into the cylinders and give those pistons a nice healthy dose of automatic transmission fluid. Of course you want to pour it in both sides, because with these split intake manifolds, I forget what these are called, but basically what you have here is that one side does 4 cylinders, the other side does the other 4 cylinders. So you don't want to just dump all your fluid down one side, of course. And now we'll grab our diesel jug and just give her a nice healthy dose right down the intake. Alrighty, I went ahead, dumped my diesel fuel mixture nonsense in here. You can see I spilled a little bit, but hopefully you guys can see quite a bit of diesel in there. Now what I'm going to do is rock the engine back and forth to make sure we pop the valves open and that diesel fuel gets everywhere. Of course, if you go to try and start this thing, you are going to want to pop all your spark plugs out. Make sure all this mixture gets out of this engine, because it'll probably hydrolock and really mess some stuff up if you try to start it with those cylinders full of this fluid. Alrighty, I rocked this engine back and forth quite a little bit, and she should be good to go now. Of course, with all that fluid in the cylinders, at one point it will get hard to turn the engine because, well, you can't compress a liquid. And of course, it's even harder to do it by hand. So anyhow, yeah, this thing ought to be good to go. It's got plenty of fluid in all the cylinders now, and those piston rings will be soaked in that diesel fuel, Marvel Mystery Oil, automatic transmission fluid mix. I use diesel fuel because the diesel fuel actually kind of has some lubrication properties to it, and it's also a very thin liquid. Of course, it's used as fuel. So, and then the other things are Marvel Mystery Oil and the automatic transmission fluid are known for unsticking things, and so they work pretty good for this. Of course, you can use just about anything if you want to dump engine oil or, I don't know, just about anything else down there. That will help preserve it. If you're just storing an old engine like this and you want to be able to come back to it and have it not seized on you later on in the future, then this is a great way to preserve your engines. You know, if you don't think you're going to get to it for like 10 years or something, a long time, just go ahead and fill the engine up with some fluid. You can fill the oil pan, but what usually happens with these old engines is you start to fill it and the diesel fuel leaks out the front and rear main seals, the oil pan gasket, your timing cover. They all start leaking like you wouldn't believe. And of course, the diesel fuel that I just put in here is probably going to leak past the piston rings, and quite a bit's going to go down into the oil pan, but I'm not too worried about that. And so, yeah, this spring I'll be pulling this engine out of this truck, actually. I've got big plans for this truck that don't involve this engine, but this engine will probably get overhauled and prepared to be put in my Stepside International, because that truck is going to be needing a fresh engine. So we'll go ahead, cover our intake back up so that all kinds of foreign stuff doesn't get in here. Of course, in Alaska, you always worry about that stuff. That stuff will get down in an engine and it'll mess all kinds of things up. You can see on the back of the engine, there's all kinds of snow back there. And if you have an engine that's uncovered, one of the scary things is snow can get down into your engine. That happened to my Ford Highboy. You guys have seen my 1967 Highboy. That truck, the previous owner pulled the intake manifold off and he left that truck out for probably 2 or 3 years. And what he didn't really account for was that the end of the intake manifold on the old FE and the edge of the hood there are at about the same place. So when all the snow load starts melting, what happens? All that water drips down. It went, and the oil pan on that truck was completely full of water. I basically had to write that engine off and find myself another 360 engine block to put my 390 parts into, of course, to make sure it's still a 390. But anyhow, this engine will be good to go in the future. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and this is one of those seldom seen things when it comes to revivals, is this kind of preparation for it, you know. I know when I go to revive this engine and get it running that those piston rings should all be moving free and clear, and they can seal off the cylinders and make a lot of compression, and that's really important for your engines. And it also seals it so your engine doesn't drink a lot of oil, because that's exactly what my step side's doing right now, because the old piston rings are completely worn out. So hopefully this engine will breathe a fresh life into my step side, and then I can breathe a fresh life into this truck with a pretty spiffy engine swap. Another thing, before I forget it, that I should say, of course, this isn't a perfect method for preservation, because, of course, right now, various valves are closed right now. Other valves are open, so this thing probably didn't get 100% of the fluid in each cylinder. But the way I see it, if I fill it up with enough fluid, it'll slowly seep through those valves. This is an old engine, and, well, I can almost guarantee you that the valves don't all seal like they used to. So, anyhow, if you guys want to see this truck in the future, you'll want to be sure to stick around. Once all this snow melts, I'll be able to do an actual walk around, you know, where I can actually walk instead of stumbling over all this snow. And yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. Thank you guys a lot for watching. We'll see you on the next one.